Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lynn McKee and I work for BMC Software, and I'm just here to introduce our lovely speakers and welcome you to the room. Thank you so much for joining us at 5 o'clock after a day where I bet you've been listening and looking and taking so much in. So thank you for your generous time here. There's been lots of talk. There's so many buzzwords, aren't there? There always are in our industry, but ecosystems, collaboration and sharing are words that are used so regularly. And as a software organization, we know we have technology, but we know that we can't deliver that technology together. So we collaborate, and some of what's going to be talked about today is a new world and old problems. But in the new world, I think it's really important to have new partnerships and new collaborations, and that's why we're here with Cloudwick today. And this is Tina Diamond, who's the Managing Director for Cloudwick in EMEA, and Alain Lebenthal, who's responsible for solutions marketing for BMC Software for big data. And that's all I really want to say is I hope you enjoy the session, and thanks again for being with us.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Okay, so yes, my name is Alain Lebenthal. I am a solutions marketing. My focus area is workload automation, more recently specifically around big data. I have been working in BMC for 19 years. I'm based in the UK, in London. I will talk more about BMC in the next slide. You know, I've been working in the last few years in the big data area, and the way I like to describe a big data project is a journey. It's not a one-time effort, it's not a single process. It's really a continuous process that requires having the right tools, the right skills, and even the right culture. So we are here together with Cloudwick, and we will share from our experience how BMC and Cloudwick helped customers implement big data. So a few words about BMC. I'm not sure if you are familiar with BMC, with what we do. We've been around for many years, focusing on digital enterprise management, over 30 years now. We are a big company with a large amount of customers. We have a few focus areas, but probably the number one is what is known as workload automation, or in simple words, scheduling. We are the biggest. We have the biggest market share when it comes to scheduling and workload automation. We are constantly being recognized by analysts like Gartner as the leader in this market, and more recently also being recognized for our capabilities around big data when it comes to scheduling, management, workload automation. We have very happy customers, and this is not easy, and it's not something that we take for granted. Our solution is good. Our customers are happy. We have over 2,000 customers today using our scheduling solution. I will mention its name only a few times today. The name is Control M. Maybe a few of you heard about the name before. But of course, later, tomorrow, you will have a chance to come and meet us at the booth and see a demo and hear more about the product. But before I talk about the product and processes, I want to start with a personal story. And this is a photo that I took a couple of years ago when I was traveling in Vietnam. I was with a few friends. I was cycling in the mountains in a very remote area, and we ended up in a small village. And after a few minutes, we were surrounded by kids, the villagers, who were all excited to see us. Apparently, they didn't see a lot of tourists before. And we started to take pictures using our phone, like we all do these days, right? We are all very active in Instagram, for example. You can follow me on Instagram, by the way. It's not about big data. My Instagram is mostly about food, which is my second passion. Anyway, back to Vietnam. I was cycling in Vietnam. We ended up in this small village. We took pictures of the kids, and we showed them the pictures. And as you know, using the mobile device, using your fingers, we showed them how they can change the size, the scale of the picture, and zoom in and zoom out. And they got all excited about it. And then, at one stage, we wanted better quality photos, so we took our Nikon camera. And we started to take pictures of the kids. Again, lots of excitement. But then, guess what? the kids wanted to see the pictures, and they tried to do the same, using their fingers to change the size of the photo on the Nikon camera, and it didn't work. And for me, it was quite an interesting experience, because it's not just about technology and the fact that it's changing the way we live, the way we act. It's changing also the customer expectations, or in this case, the expectations of small little kids in Vietnam. They got used to this new technology of changing the size of the image, the size of the picture in the phone so fast, they expected to get the same on the camera. So we are living in a digital world, and it became a kind of a cliche, but we are really living in a digital world. I've been to many conferences before when the speakers talked about how they use the phone to book their flights, check into the flights, book hotels. How many of you heard it before? Come on. We all do that. So I just want to share one personal story from last week. It was the weekend in London. I had some medical problems, and I really wanted to talk to a doctor. Obviously, my doctor was not working during the weekends. One of the options was to go to the hospital and wait for a few hours in a very dark, gloomy reception room at the hospital. But I realized I have a better option. Using the same device, I could book an online video appointment with a doctor. I could even choose the doctor. I had a few options. I could choose the doctor, and after a few hours, I had a video call with a doctor, going through the situation at home in my pajamas, and it didn't even hurt. So this is just one example how technology is changing, we are changing, we are living our lives nowadays through those devices. And yes, sometimes I will use it also to make phone calls. Now, going digital is not an option. It's a must. If you want to maintain your business or to grow your business, you must go digital. And you can look at the numbers here on the slide. You can see, for example, that 75% of the S&P 500 customers are expected to be replaced in the next 10 years. That's a huge number. And a couple of months ago, I was watching an interview with a few banking leaders. It was in the Davos Forum of last year. I'm not sure if you've seen it, any of you, but it was quite interesting, especially one of the speakers was the chairman of the BBVA, one of the largest banks in Europe and the world. And he was talking about the Uber moment in the banking industry and the fact that everyone is going digital, and it must be applied also at the banking industry. He talked about 20,000 banks that are currently operating in the world. Not all of them will survive. Many of them will not exist in a year or 2 or 5 years. And I think the interviewer asked him, "Can you give me names?" So it was a bit funny, but no names, but it's clearly those that will not adapt to the change, those that will not go digital and will not provide their customers with a better service will not exist in the future. As he called it, that's the Uber moment of the banking industry. All right, so we all want to go digital, which means that we can take the technology that we have been using for 10 or 20 and 30 years and throw it away, right? No, not really. And I'm showing you this picture. Can you recognize the city in the picture? Anyone, come on. Don't be shy. New York, thank you, Chris. So yes, on the picture you can see New York. On the left side, on the right side, that's New York, a picture that was taken a couple of months ago. On the left side, that's New York from 1904. Any guesses what happened in New York in 1904? Not you, Chris. Okay, in 1904, this is when the first line of the subway started to operate, right? So the first New York subway started to operate in 1904. As you can see, comparing the pictures from the left to the right, you can see that a lot has changed during the years in New York, right? The skyline of New York is completely different because, of course, of new buildings, new skyscrapers that were built during the years. But guess what? The infrastructure below remain pretty much the same. It's the same subway that has been operated for over 100 years. Yes, it was improved. I can imagine that the trains were replaced, air conditioning was applied, security and so on, improvement to the subway system, but at the end of the day, it's the same heartbeat of the system beneath the buildings that operate it and allowing 4 million people go to work and to some extent connecting all the skyscrapers together. Why am I showing you this? Because the IT environment, the modern IT environment, is pretty much the same when we think about it. It's all built on layers. And what you need or what you want is to have a strong foundation, strong infrastructure that will allow you to later on build for modernization. So you should have a strong legacy system supporting everything that is being built on top. So, going back to big data, and the big question is, how can IT or enterprise IT manage big data? And talking to our customers in the last few years, we realized that the challenges that customers implementing big data have are pretty much the same that our customers, our traditional customers coming from other areas, had in the past. Scheduling. I have a workflow which I would like to run in a certain day at a certain time. I want to assure that it's running successfully. If something goes wrong, I want to know that it went wrong, and I want to fix it as soon as possible. I want to assure that my SLAs are met. How many of you are facing today problems with your SLAs? And come on, don't be shy. All right. I want to assure that the SLAs are met. I want to be ready for changes. And come on, changes happen all the time. I want to be ready for those changes. I want to understand what is the impact of a change in one of my applications. I want to provide self-service capabilities so the business users can handle stuff on their own and understand the status of the specific workflow that they are trying to run. I need to integrate. I think it was Gartner who said for the first time, probably 2 years ago, Hadoop is not an island. But Hadoop is not an island. We are all running an enterprise that usually includes legacy systems, ERP systems, and of course big data implementations. So how do we integrate all of it together, not to mention file transfers? Everyone is doing file transfers. And so on and so on. Lots of challenges that we have been addressing for years with our offering, and I will talk more about our offering in a couple of minutes. But first, I would like to introduce Tina, who will share from her experience working for Cloud Week with their customers.
Thank you, Alon. Thank you very much, and thank you again for joining us. So, historically, everybody wants to get to the analytics. They want to figure out how to scale, how do you get to optimizing your platform and making sure that you can leverage all the data that you have. And what we always come in, and I think sometimes we pleasantly shock our customers by saying there's a lot of planning that goes into it because, as Alon mentioned, the foundation is where you need to spend the most time. And the foundation, especially with Hadoop, which is so complex, there's so many projects, components, open source areas that are still maturing and not at the same time. So how do you understand where your current state is and how to get to the analytics, which everybody is sure that there is gold, which there is, but it takes a while to get there. The one thing that I always talk to our customers about is when you sit down, the platform is going to be what enables you, but where you need to start is understanding what are the use cases, and that will help to plan, it'll help to build, and then it'll help to manage your entire infrastructure, especially in the enterprise space. So just a brief little bit about CloudWick and why I'm standing here. We started 7 years ago with the likes of Hortonworks, and we're in a space when Hadoop was 3 years old, so everybody was on the I build, not the I buy. They were trying to understand where do you find people to help you understand what this will even look like, let alone how to build, manage, and operate. And It was started and founded by our CEO that understood that these people that will understand how to leverage these skills, and there will be many new tools and technologies that will emerge, needed to be built from the ground up. So that's what we did. We built our team, and we've grown to over 200 consultants, 180 in the US and over 20 now in EMEA. And we have implemented over 50,000 clusters. And these are primarily with enterprises, and we continue to build them in the cloud, on-prem, and hybrid solutions. We are very clear on our strategic partnerships because we realize that in this space, you're going to be leveraging and looking at how you're going to be building things, and you want to have the right relationships, the right approach, and you want to align it together so the customer is always successful and they're always at the center. And that's why we choose fewer partners, but bigger success. And we have now expanded to, in October 2015, we started our European operations, and we have now grown to the APAC region to support our 24/7 managed service following the sun. And these are some of the customers and enterprises that we have worked with, and we've done over 40 projects in EMEA and have worked with over 25 customers. So probably the biggest challenge that customers, when we sit down with them, have is accessing their data. How do you access and how do you get it where it needs to be? And this is where we have spent a lot of time understanding what our customers are looking to do, how they want to build it. There are so many different components that when the legacy way of doing things, where everybody had their silos and everybody had security within their silo and their Oracle databases and their Teradatas, everybody had the correct access. You didn't have to understand how to turn everything on its side and then expand it horizontally and then plan for scale and understand what will that mean to my business. Because 10 years ago, people weren't sitting down looking at data governance. They weren't thinking about metadata management, cataloging, and understanding data lineage. Those are things that have come up because there's so much more data and aspects of the data to help businesses seek value from that. So in understanding that, there are so many more challenges, but solutions to the challenges that I see that this market is also addressing. So one of the customers that we helped address and solve this with is the UK Data Archive. And my favorite quote from the head of security and infrastructure, when our solution architect asked in the very beginning, what is the data loss that you were looking at? And he said, 0. Not one piece of data can be lost. This is what we do. We archive data. So we cannot look at the minimal as 0 data. So with that in mind, they also were keen on, because the UK Data Archive is a government-funded social sciences research and collaborative body that works with many of the UK universities, and they're looking to internationally expand that with big data because they wanted to build a platform on HDP that would be secure enough to hold what they say is 10% of their data models and their crown jewels, and then be able to expand and do a cloud where they use open data, collaborate with other universities, with other research centers that are also looking at research and data around smart metering and the energy. And they're also expanding to then figure out how to commercialize what they're doing. So the likes of an EDF Energy or O-Power, how can they leverage data and start being customers of the UK Data Archive and the cooperative that they're building? Probably the two critical pieces were getting the data in and then securing the data where it needed to be. And with HDF, they created a hybrid 3-platform solution. And that has now allowed them for bursting capabilities, use cases. Their data scientists are using Spark, HBase, and they're exploring and building these data models that continue to help the larger community. So they've launched this in April this month, and they're going to be now taking this reference architecture and the way they were able to implement this to the larger community, which is really exciting, and they're starting their roadshow in the next 2 months. So this is one example of how some of these challenges were tackled, but the data governance piece and the data management piece probably took the most internal conversations that they had to have, because security looked at it from one perspective, then business looked at it from another, and then infrastructure another. So how do you sit down, have everybody in the room understand where everybody's focus is, and then start to have that conversation to see how can we plan for making the access and control for all the different users happen. So I found that this is the piece where I always enjoy most, and that was probably the longest and largest conversation. It wasn't technical. The technical pieces came after. So for me, that was exciting. And I think the fundamental principles that we have, and I liken this to, I don't know if any of you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you start with your basic needs, which is consolidating and the platform. You can't get to enlightenment for data science without having food and shelter and resources at the bottom. So the way that we approach it is we build it by consolidating data, then figuring out how to manage it. What is the governance and the strategy? And then you get to the data science, which is nirvana, which is where everybody wants to get to. But if you have leaks in the bottom pieces, you're going to have pipes exploding by the time you get to the reporting. And that's not a solid, to go back to Alon's underground, 100-year-old subway system, that is what's going to continue to support and keep your business able to grow and scale. Because the data science piece is the one that we're all still trying to get to. But this is the consolidation, the consistency of the data, the cleansing is what takes probably the most time building. This one also resonated with me because I was thinking, how do I show a picture that shows who has the key to unlocking the value? And it's actually both business and IT. IT is going to be holding, if you think of a security box in a bank, they've got the infrastructure to hold the safety deposit box in that holds businesses' data and helps access that data. And both need to unlock it and work together in understanding what are the use cases, how can we get value, what are the use cases that we can do, how do we figure out which ones we implement first, middle, last. And it's a conversation that it takes both perspectives to start to understand. And I see IT enabling what business is driving, and that support allows the business to do what they need to do, because as I see it, technology is here to enable what we are trying to do with our business, with our data. And this is exactly how, when we approach it this way, we find that customers' success, the time to value is shortened, because they understand it has to be seen from many different ways. And the conversations when I start saying, when someone says, I want to build a platform, and that's fantastic. So my next question always is, what's the use case? And we want to build a platform. So what is the use case you're looking to do? And the many times that, because IT is not programmed to look at what the business use case may be, but if you go to ask business, how are you going to make this happen? They say, well, someone's going to build me a platform and then they're going to give me my data so I can do all my BI and use my tools and visualize it to everybody. So I see it as a synergistic relationship that drives success for the customer. And then the next piece that I have learned, probably the hard way, is to sit down with the customer, or the customer sits down internally to understand how they prioritize those use cases. And some of the things that I find helpful is to understand, so what are you trying to achieve by this use case? What are the metrics you're looking to improve? Is this going to give you 10, 5, 2, 1 times the reporting that you need? What is it? How easy is it to implement? Do you want to implement it by a tool? We had one customer that had done this multiple times, and by the 4th or 5th time building a Hadoop platform, said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to prioritize it by tools. They chose Spark because they saw they had 50 use cases in Spark. Then they prioritized those use cases to see which ones were the easiest to the most difficult and complex. And that also increases the time to value for the business users to enable them to do what they need to do. And then I think the other misunderstanding I sometimes, maybe not anyone in the room, but I sometimes come across is people want to get to streaming because that's going to really drive so many different use cases. But in our experience, it's always you start with the batch and then you move to the streaming data. And we have one of our customers is a nonprofit, and they work in the copyright infringement space. And they sat down with us and they knew that they wanted to get to the streaming, and we advised them to start with a batch use case. And at the time, they were saying, okay, well, right now it's taking us days to run this report to match all of the singles to all of the websites. And I think it was something like 15 million matches. There were duplications, there were different ways of spelling the titles of the songs. So we sat down and said, okay, what we see we can do is definitely decrease the time, but we had no idea what that could be. We knew it was going to go from days to probably hours. And we said, okay, from our experience, this will probably be about 20, 25 days to sit down and go through the planning, the building, and then the testing and implementing. It took us 22 days, and we went from one match going from 4 hours down to 1 second. And our team were fantastic. They wanted to get it sub-second. That was there. And they had already done 12 iterations. And we said, and the customer was so excited. They said, no, you don't understand. We've gone from days, we've gone from hours to minutes to seconds. We didn't expect this. So now we've been implementing a streaming use case, which we had, I think we said it would take about 45 days, and it's taking about 50 days because of some work that we needed to go back actually on this use case, change the data model, and then implement it for the streaming use case. So for me, that's been a real exciting journey. Now I'd like to hand it back to Alon to go through. I've just.
That's fine.
I didn't realize it was a
No damage
picture.
done.
And thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Tina. So Tina talked about the foundations, and during the years we realized that one of the most important foundations for a healthy IT environment is scheduling. Scheduling or workload automation is really the heartbeat that assures that everything is running together, that assures that everything is integrated, and finally that the business processes run successfully. When I've attended some of those events in the last few years, and initially when I talked to customers about scheduling, not everyone understood what exactly it means, or do they really need it. Nowadays, what I hear all the time is, wow, we need a scheduling solution. we are sick of using Uzi. Uzi is not good enough for our purposes. We want to take it to the enterprise. We need a solution that can allow us to scale, and so on and so on. There are lots of challenges in this area. Obviously, you want to assure that you are compliant. The product that you are running needs to be stable. You need to assure that your processes are running daily on a regular basis and ended successfully. You want to reduce cost in this process. You want to be efficient. You want to allow rapid change. You want to be able to be agile and assure that if changes are needed, you can apply those changes fast. And scripting or using basic open source solutions are just not good enough. What we have been doing with our customers, and you can see an example on the right, this is an example of our graphical interface, which is available on multiple platforms and also on mobile devices, like iPad and iPhone in this picture. We support Android as well. But what we have been doing is really providing end-to-end automation. So a customer can automate all their business processes. And it doesn't matter if it's running on a mainframe or Unix or Windows or an ERP system like SAP or Oracle applications or applications like Informatica, DataStage, Cognos, backups, Hadoop, all the different flavors. We manage everything from one central location. So you can actually have your entire business process being managed from one location, and also providing self-service capabilities, providing easy to understand tools so you can easily understand the status of your process, the status of each and every job in the process, and have everything integrated into one. I will just show you one quick example of building a workflow with Control M, and if you want to see more, I definitely encourage you to come and talk to the technical team tomorrow at our booth. This is an example of our graphical interface of Control M. There are multiple sections. I will just show you quickly how easy it is to define a workflow of jobs in the product. You can easily drag and drop. For example, you can have a first job in the system to transfer data, and then have an Hadoop job running immediately afterwards. You can have multiple jobs of Hadoop running at the same time, and it can be Pig or Hive or MapReduce or Impala or Spark, and so on and so on. You can add another file transfer at the end, and finally have another job to manage the SLA and assure that the entire process is running successfully. And that's it. It's easy to define, it's easy to manage, same look and feel for your entire enterprise, no matter what you are running, as you can see over here. And of course, using our solution, you can troubleshoot, you can have a look at history, go back to understand what happened to a workflow a couple of days ago. Everything is configurable, but I will not go too much into details right now because I'm not as technical as I used to be, and we don't have a lot of time. So that's just one example of defining a workflow of your business using Control M. At the end of the day, automation is really important, and the title here is Automation as a Competitive Weapon, but really scripting is just not good enough. If you spend your time scripting, if you spend your time fixing errors or not even knowing that something happened, that a job failed in your environment, you are losing time, you are losing money. So what we offer is really automation end-to-end. And going back to the big data journey, we can automate each and every step of your big data journey. Starting with the data ingestion process, the process of analyzing the data, and finally making it available to analytics. And I want to share with you just two examples of two of our customers. One of them, I'm sure that you all know, Sky TV, a very large British telecommunication company. They have been using Control M and our solutions for many years now. And more recently, they started to use it also across big data. What they're doing is actually to use Control M to automate Hadoop processes that analyze data that they collect from the viewers about which programs are actually being watched and so on. And based on that, they take some decisions about future schedules and development of programs. Using our solution, they managed to reduce the time it takes to move an application from development to production by 40%. This is Sky TV in the UK. The other example I want to include, maybe not as familiar as Sky, but This is a $10 billion company in the US, Navistar. They are in the business of manufacturing and maintaining trucks or school buses. They have over 160,000 trucks across the US, and they developed a couple of years ago a solution called, or an application called On Command, which allows them to actually monitor all the trucks and understand fuel consumption, geographical location, problems that may happen within the track. They collect all those millions of data points each and every day, analyze it, and based on that, they provide recommendations and some actions for each and every truck. For example, truck number 1 will be next month in Minnesota in a specific city, and it requires some maintenance, so they schedule for him the maintenance in a specific place, and also will do the shipment of the replacement parts that are necessary. They've been using our solutions for many years, now expanded it over big data as well. You can see the numbers. They managed to reduce the time required for unplanned repairs by 30%. And at the end of the day, it's all about saving time. It's all about improving the service, because as you can imagine, they want the trucks to be on the road all the time rather than spend value time in the garage being fixed. So that's it. Those are the 2 examples that I have. And at this stage, I would like to open it to questions to Tina or me. Don't be shy. You can ask Lynn as well if you want.
I haven't understood how your both companies are connected together.
All right. Yes. You want to take it, Tina?
Sure. So I started a conversation with Lynn, who works at BMC, and we started to see the synergy that we had in what we did. Automation is something that in big data is still maturing, and the way that I was seeing what they did, BMC were seeing what Cloudwick did. We saw that there is definitely a relationship to move forward, and I think the thing that crystallized it the most was both of our approaches in we wanted customers to be successful in this space, and with both of us combining efforts, we saw that that was more of a possibility than just one person focusing on one thing and one on the other. We were trying to live what the ecosystem that we all talk about in this space is really about.
Yes, and addressing the same challenges, addressing them together, and at the end of the day, providing what we believe is a better implementation, or helping the customer to implement better the big data project, which again, automation is a key part of it, but not the only one. Yes?
Bless you.
Automation across borders, I mean, okay, to collaborate with different corporates.
The mic.
My question is automation across borders or between corporations. I thought it's something like the new blockchain, something like this, or it is completely different what I think.
Okay. We do have customers that are implementing or are automating their processes across different geographical locations. I mean, we don't care about the physical borders, and we do have customers that are cooperating with external customers or with a third party. And a very common one is, of course, when you do file transfers. In certain industries, like banking, obviously, file transfers between organizations are very common, and we can help with that as well. All right, thank you very much. And again, if you can, please come and meet us at the booth. We will be there. We have a few demo stations showing overall automation, and we have a dedicated demo booth also specifically for EDW offload, which is quite interesting.
Thank you very much for your time.